Hello and welcome back to your Stop Smoking class, session 3. All right, you're sticking with it. Good for you, but let's keep on going. Today we're going to be talking about addiction, about withdrawals, cravings, and triggers, and a lot about your thinking. And so the thought I want to begin with today is you have to start seeing yourself as a non-smoker, really and truly. For how many years has it been ingrained to you that you're a smoker? Okay, it becomes part of your identity, almost who you are, right? So when you're going through this process of quitting, you have to truly begin to picture yourself, visualize your life as a non-smoker. This is a choice you're making on solid grounds, okay, for solid motivations, for your health, for your future, for the longevity of your life. So start picturing yourself as a non-smoker. It's not just something you're not going to do for a week or a month or a year, or when you get that great job and you get the money coming in and you get that car. Oh, okay, I've made it a little bit, so I can pick up smoking again. No. This is a decision for the rest of your life. This is a lifestyle decision, and you are going to be a non-smoker. And so start to visualize that. Some of us, it's going to be very, very hard to see ourselves as a non-smoker. In session 4, we're going to be going through a lot of role play and how we engage old friends, how we engage old situations. But start now. Start seeing yourself as a non-smoker. How you're going to say no when someone invites you for a smoke. It's crucial. So we're going to begin session 3 today talking about addiction a bit and getting into triggers, okay? Addiction is a process that involves 3 things, okay? There's a compulsion to use. There's a compulsion to smoke. Remember, our brain has been changed. The dopamine in our brain has been changed. There's this compulsion. Second, loss of control. We want to quit, but we can't quit. That's a sign you're addicted. And then third, we keep doing it. We keep smoking or whatever the addiction is, despite the negative consequences. You've had that hacking cough for years. The doctor has told you quit, but still you keep going through all these negative circumstances. Addiction involves obsessive thinking about smoking, and we're thinking is huge. Addiction affects your thinking. So, for example, sometimes you feel like you need a smoke when actually you don't, okay? Problems are coming up in your life time and time again because of your choice to smoke, but yet you just keep going because you have, it's the story you're telling yourself in your head. I need this. I deserve this. And it's not true. It's time to rewrite the story, so to speak. And that's why I'm saying, see yourself as a non-smoker for life, okay? We're not going to be that dog that returns to the vomit. We're not going to go back to what held us captive. We're going to quit, and we're going to quit for good. So this recovery, this choosing to see yourself as a non-smoker, it is a process. Okay, let's dive into the theme of our session today. We're going to be talking about triggers, cravings, and withdrawal. And just to begin, what is a trigger to you? You can pause the video right now and say, what is a trigger? All right. All recovering people have certain people, places, emotions, and things that they associate with smoking. These people, places, things, and feelings are so closely related to the smoking that they trigger the thoughts, the stories to start going in your head. And as you engage in these high-risk people, places, things, and feelings, they trigger something. They trigger a thought process. So a trigger will automatically lead to thoughts about smoking. These thoughts will lead to craving, and craving will lead to relapse. Craving leads to the act that you don't want to do. All recovering people, regardless of what you're trying to quit, they have these certain people, places, emotions, and things that are associated with their substance use. In our case, smoking. Okay. Remember that smoking has caused chemical changes in your brain with regards to your dopamine, and this makes you vulnerable to going back, to relapse. You have memories, you have certain associations, you have feelings. All these things are so tightly weaved together in your brain that it's going to take some time to break these connections. And that's why I said, start seeing yourself as a non-smoker. We have to start very slowly breaking these connections in our brain. Okay, so there's certain types of triggers. The first we're going to talk about is internal triggers. These are triggers that come from inside of you, from your emotions. An emotional state that you experience before, during, or after you smoke. For example, you might have felt very happy. You might have felt anxious. You might have felt depressed. You might have felt sexually aroused, right, while you're smoking, or after, or before. Okay? These feelings therefore remind you of smoking. You have such a emotional tie to the smoking that just the thought of it, you can't do it without thinking of smoking. Okay, so that's an internal trigger. It comes from within you. Now there's external triggers. These are the bigger ones and kind of easier to talk about. External triggers include events, places, things, specific times of the day that you associate with smoking. For instance, these triggers could include a neighborhood, the smoking section, a smoke pit, maybe the liquor store or store where you went to go buy your cigarettes every evening or whatever. So these are items that are connected to your smoking. Maybe if you used a certain ashtray or a certain type of lighter or whatever. So also, external triggers could be people that you always used to smoke with. So, in summary, external triggers include events, places, things, or specific times of the day that you associate with smoking. I'm going to tell you an example real quick of an external trigger with regards to eating. Let's say I had an eating addiction, or let's just say I'm trying to eat healthier. I'm on a diet. I'm driving my car. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm driving my car, and I see a billboard for Carl's Jr. with a big, fat, triple cheeseburger. And I'm hungry. I haven't eaten for all day. Right there, that visual triggers me. I want to eat healthy, but I see that triple cheeseburger. Okay? And now the thoughts start going in my head. How am I going to get this cheeseburger? I'm thinking about, biting into that sucker, and, my mouth is watering, okay? And now I'm planning. Where's the closest Carl's Jr.? Do I have enough money? Am I going to go through drive-through on my way home? Or how am I going to do it, right? So the whole thought process has started, okay? And once you do it, in recovery, we call it dry relapse, the planning stage, where you're already visualizing doing it. It's as if you've already relapsed. So the key is going to be stop that thought train before it gets going with so much momentum that it cannot be stopped. So instead, same situation, I'm driving, I'm trying to diet, I'm trying to eat healthier. I see that triple cheeseburger, and immediately I want the cheeseburger. The trigger comes the craving. I want it. But then I have to put a stop to that thought train, that thought process. And I got to remind myself, wait a second, I'm trying to eat healthier. I want to live longer. I don't want to clog my arteries with all that fat in that cheeseburger. Okay, I've made a good decision to go on a diet. I could actually go home and I have some leftovers from last night, maybe some grilled chicken, a salad, and that's going to satisfy that hunger, and I'm going to feel better about myself if I don't go for that double cheeseburger. So right then, I use my thoughts to combat that trigger, because once that thought train gets rolling and the cravings start, my mouth is watering, it's very hard to stop. So that is an external trigger. The trigger was the billboard with the triple cheeseburger. There's also sensory triggers. These are sensations, sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch that remind you of smoking. So you're walking by someone and they're smoking a cigarette and you get a little whiff and, oh, I want a cigarette, okay? Not your fault. You were just walking on the street, right? But that's a sensory trigger, okay? We have to be mindful of these. Um, uh, every person has their own specific equation, their own specific sensory triggers. So what are your sensory triggers? Is it the sight of something? Is it the sound of something? Maybe certain music, okay? Maybe the taste of, people like their cigarette with coffee. So you can't have that coffee. You smell the coffee, you taste the coffee, and it's like, man, you need a cigarette. So there's sensory triggers. So we have internal triggers, our emotions coming from inside of us, external triggers, and then sensory triggers that play upon your senses. Why don't we take a moment, and I just want you on your study guide, I want you to list your main triggers. List in those three categories, list your triggers that come from outside, the external triggers, internal triggers, and then sensory triggers. So take a moment right now. Just take a couple of moments and jot down the first ones that come to your mind. And if you can, share those with someone in the class, or if you don't, you can share that with your sponsor. All right, very good. You have your triggers down there. Good job. We're working our recovery. We're working to see ourselves as non-smokers. So once you've identified the trigger, you have to realize that's a major victory in itself. To maintain your life as a non-smoker, you have to be able to identify these triggers when they hit you, because you don't want to be that innocent victim. You see the billboard, then you automatically go like a puppy running for this. There's no cognizance of that. So identifying your trigger and identifying the moment that the trigger hits you, that's huge. So being aware of the people, places, things, thoughts, senses that trigger you, that's the first step in the battle. Next is to avoid it. If you see a sign of danger and you keep going to it, that's ignorance. So whenever possible, avoid the high-risk situation, avoid high-risk people, and all other triggers. This is going to be especially huge your first couple days, your first week after you set your quit date. So you're going to want to do everything you can to avoid the smoking area, things like that, even the liquor store or the store where you go buy your cigarettes. Avoidance is a great way, okay? Sometimes you can't avoid things, but if you can, avoid it. The next way to combat triggers is to interrupt the trigger. For example, certain feelings or certain days of the week you can't avoid, right? But if you have a trigger, you can interrupt that thought process by, say, doing something else, engaging in a healthy activity, calling somebody up. So the trigger happens. It's kind of like temptation with regards to sin. When the temptation comes upon us, that's not a sin. It's what you do after the temptation. So a trigger is very similar. The trigger is going to come on you, just like I was driving and I saw the billboard. It wasn't my fault. That's not my bad. But what I do after that is going to determine if I'm going to be victorious or not. So a trigger works the same way. You identify it, and then you, through your maturity and your training and your commitment, you say, I'm going in another direction. I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to be mature. So identifying the trigger, diffusing the trigger, and then avoiding it if you can, and then interrupting it. If you can't avoid it, you interrupt it. Another big thing is it's really key to talk about your triggers. If you want to lessen their power and stop them from causing you to do things you don't want to do, talk about them. Illuminate how these triggers take effect on you. Talk about it with your sponsor. Talk about it with someone in the class. They'll lose their power. And then the other way to combat a trigger is thought stopping. A trigger, like I said, it leads to this train of thoughts that once it's going, it gains momentum, and it's hard to stop. So just like a train, if you stop it more at the beginning before it gets that momentum and that speed, it's going to be a lot easier. If you wait before, it's going to be way too late. There's too much momentum, and you're already driving to the liquor store to buy your cigarettes or your whatever it is. So at the beginning, at the first point you identify it, you got to have the mental awareness and the determination to say, I'm going to stop this. I'm not going down that road. I'm not going there in my head. Because if I go there in my head, there might be no coming back. So thought stopping. The trigger will lead you to think about smoking. This thinking will lead to craving and eventually relapse. And if you don't stop it, there could be this increased obsession. But the very good news is that you can interrupt these thoughts. You can try things. This is some advice: relaxation techniques, visualization exercises. There's a lot of different strategies and techniques that you can implement to stop this thought train. And then just to finish up this point about triggers, it's really wise at the beginning. The easiest way to not experience triggers is to flat out avoid them. See the danger before you're right there at the edge. So if the easiest way to stop them is to avoid them before you experience them, because you don't want to have to go through that inner battle. So at the beginning, just avoid it. Get out of the place. Be like Joseph and run when the temptation is grabbing you and trying to get you to do something you don't want to do. The best time to stop a trigger from leading to a relapse is either before you experience the trigger or before the trigger leads to a craving. One of the best relapse prevention techniques is to avoid high-risk triggers immediately. Okay, we got that? Okay, we're going to finish this session off by talking about withdrawal symptoms. And as we're contemplating our quit date, yes, we're contemplating a quit date. I want you to be thinking about a date, but we have to prepare for withdrawal, and because the withdrawal symptoms are what could hijack our plans to quit. So withdrawal symptoms is, your body is recovering. Your body is feeling bad because you're not smoking, because your body has gotten used to the nicotine. But I actually want to call them, instead of withdrawal symptoms, recovery symptoms, because your body's trying to get healthy again. Okay. And these negative feelings, these bad feelings will last some time, a few days, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. But the good news is you will get better. You can talk to all sorts of people who quit smoking, and they've quit smoking for years and they don't have the withdrawal symptoms anymore. So they will pass. They will go away. But let's talk about some of these withdrawal symptoms. As we talked about earlier, cravings. This physical craving will usually, if you time a craving, it usually only lasts a few minutes. Okay? I would say 10 minutes at the most. But if you time a craving, I used to do this with alcohol all the time, where I want it, okay? And I'm driving home, and I'm driving by my favorite liquor store. And I know this craving is hitting me. I want to go in. I want to grab a beer. I need it. But if I just hold on, it's going to pass. And usually my cravings would pass within 5 minutes. I would actually look at the clock, and then if I just held on, drove by the store, got to my apartment, it would pass. So time your craving, but usually they only last a few minutes. And then the best thing to do is to change your mindset. Call someone, exercise, have a glass of water, do something to break up that craving. Other withdrawal symptoms. So hang on, the cravings exist, but they're temporal, they will pass. And I want you to start timing your cravings. If you can hold on. It's like the boxer's getting hit. They can't keep going. You just got to hold on, and they're gonna get tired. Some of you might say, "Well, I've had cravings that lasted for days." Okay, but just hold on. It will get better. They don't last forever. Other withdrawal symptoms: irritability and tension. That's real. Okay, so you have to try other ways to relax yourself because you're going to be on edge. You have to try some relaxation techniques. We can brainstorm that. Coughing. This could mean that your lungs are cleaning themselves out. So when things settle down, your lungs are going to regenerate and be clean again. You could feel as a withdrawal tingling in your legs or arms, but this is showing that your circulation is slowly starting to improve. Other types of withdrawal symptoms could be trouble sleeping, headaches, a tight throat, dry mouth, stomach is upset, dizziness, difficulty concentrating. These are real. Don't worry. They're unpleasant, but they will pass. Very normal, but they'll pass. So just In Spanish, we say aguantar, just determined to hang in there, to stay tough. When you're having the strong cravings, here's some things you can do. Have a glass of water. Have a soda. I'm not against that. Yeah, you might gain some weight, but you're saving your lungs. Okay. Drink something, not alcohol. Have a few low-calorie snacks nearby. Have some dried fruit, apples. I love, just, having a banana, some kind of fruit that changes, go for a walk or a run if you're athletic, do some exercise, get the endorphins going, and that leads to a dopamine dump. So you're going to feel good. And now instead of smoking when that craving hits, you're actually doing something positive. So before craving hits, I go have a smoke, I deteriorate my lungs, I'm going to die sooner. Now craving hits, I go for a walk, I go do some exercise. I'm doing something positive for my heart. I'm going to live longer, God willing. Another way to combat craving is deep breathing. How often do we do that? Okay, so develop your strategies, your techniques to deal with your cravings. On your study guide right now, I want you to list a couple things that you can do when the craving hits, something realistic. If you're not going to go for a run, if you're not going to do 50 push-ups, if you're not going to call something, think about something you really can do and something you will do. Be practical. You don't need to just come up with an answer, something that will work for you. Okay, the last thing I want to give you today is how to cope with cravings. It's the 4 Ds. You'll see on your study guide the 4 Ds. The first one is delay. The second one is deep breathing. The third is drink water. And the fourth is do something else. The 4 Ds to deal with cravings, to cope with your cravings. Delay, deep breathing, drink water, do something else. That's what we're talking about. Delay the craving. It's going to pass. Deep breathing stops that thought train. Drinking water maybe, flushes out your system a little bit. And do something else. Change your mindset. I'm going to say again here, I said this in earlier sessions, nicotine replacement therapy could be really good to reduce your cravings and withdrawals. Again, you can call 1-800-NO-BUTS. You can talk to your doctor about getting some patches, getting some gum, something along those lines. So in our session today, we talked a lot about triggers. We talked about withdrawal symptoms, and we talked about coping with craving. And again, I want you to develop your personalized plan so that when your quit date comes, you will have a strategy and you will be prepared. So when these withdrawals hit, when these cravings hit, you're going to have a plan of attack. You're going to know what to do. I want to finish by reading 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3-5. For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. You live in this world full of temptations, full of triggers, okay? But you don't have to wage war as the world does. You don't have to be a victim like other people in the world where they see the billboard and they just run to the thing. We have weapons that are not of this world. They have divine power to demolish these attacks, to demolish the pretensions that set themselves up with the knowledge of God. Your body's a temple of the Holy Spirit. That's what God wants it to be. And so you're doing a great work right now by trying to quit smoking. And so what do you got to do? You got to take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. Take captive every thought. When that thought train starts going that is tempting you to go back and smoke, you say, no, I'm taking these thoughts captive. I'm going to choose to be obedient to God. I want God, because God sees all my thoughts anyway. So I'm going to try to sanctify my mind, sanctify my thought life, get discipline in my thoughts, not be lazy thinkers and just go off with whatever sensory thing that comes in front of me. I'm going to be self-controlled in my thoughts. I'm going to be wise, and I'm going to bring God glory in my thoughts. May God bless you. May He bless your efforts and your work as you're trying to serve Him and glorify Him as a non-smoker. And you are a non-smoker. In Jesus' name, God bless you.